What if I told you that your Netflix binge, your Instagram scrolling, and your next Amazon purchase might be making you less free than a medieval peasant? This isn't some anti-technology rant or nostalgic fantasy about the good old days. It's a warning that was issued nearly a century ago by one of the most prescient thinkers of the modern age, and it's playing out exactly as he predicted. Aldous Huxley wasn't just a novelist who wrote dystopian fiction for entertainment. He was a British intellectual who lived from 1894 to 1963, witnessing two world wars, the rise of mass media, and the birth of consumer culture. Unlike many of his contemporaries who focused on external threats to human freedom, Huxley understood something far more sinister, that future tyrants wouldn't need to force us into submission. We would willingly hand over our freedom in exchange for pleasure, convenience, and the illusion of choice. Most people think of George Orwell's 1984 when they imagine authoritarian control, Big Brother watching, thought police enforcing, citizens living in fear. But Huxley saw a different path to human enslavement, one he outlined in Brave New World. He predicted that people would come to love their oppression, that they would adore the technologies that destroyed their capacity for independent thought. The key difference is crucial. Orwell feared those who would ban books, while Huxley feared a world where no one would want to read them because they were too busy consuming endless streams of trivial entertainment. In Huxley's fictional world, the drug soma kept citizens docile and content, providing instant escape from any discomfort or challenging thought. Today, we don't need a literal drug because we've created something even more effective, a digital ecosystem designed to hijack our brain's reward systems. Every notification ping triggers a small hit of dopamine, the same neurotransmitter involved in addiction. Every swipe, every like, every purchase provides a momentary pleasure that keeps us coming back for more. The neuroscience behind this is both fascinating and terrifying. Our brains evolved to seek immediate rewards because in our ancestral environment, delay often meant death. But in our modern world of abundance, this same system makes us vulnerable to what researchers call supernormal stimuli, artificially enhanced experiences that trigger our reward circuits more intensely than anything in nature ever could. Social media platforms employ teams of neuroscientists and behavioral economists to make their products as addictive as possible. They've gamified human connection, turning our most basic social needs into a slot machine that occasionally pays out with validation and belonging. This brings us to what I call our modern form of slavery. Not the brutal physical chains of the past, but invisible psychological bonds that are arguably more effective because we don't even recognize them as constraints. We live in debt slavery, constantly purchasing things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. We experience time slavery, surrendering hours of our lives to endless entertainment that leaves us feeling empty and restless. We submit to attention slavery, allowing algorithms to decide what we think about and when we think about it. Most insidiously, we suffer from emotional slavery, outsourcing our sense of self-worth to the validation of strangers on social platforms. Consider this. The average person checks their phone 96 times per day. That's once every 10 minutes during waking hours. We've created a world where we can't sit alone with our thoughts for more than a few minutes without reaching for external stimulation. Meanwhile, rates of anxiety and depression have skyrocketed despite unprecedented material prosperity. We have more choices than any generation in human history. Yet Barry Schwartz's research on the paradox of choice shows that too many options often lead to decision paralysis and decreased satisfaction with whatever choice we make. This is exactly what Huxley meant when he wrote that the perfect dictatorship would have the appearance of democracy, a prison without walls in which the prisoners would not dream of escape. We think we're free because we can choose between hundreds of Netflix shows, thousands of products on Amazon, or countless social media feeds to scroll through. But these aren't real choices. They're manufactured options designed to keep us consuming and distracted while our actual agency slowly erodes. The path out of this trap requires understanding what Huxley discovered in the later part of his life, when he turned toward what he called the perennial philosophy, the common wisdom found across spiritual traditions that emphasizes contemplation, self-awareness, and the cultivation of inner freedom. This isn't about adopting any particular religious belief, but about recognizing that genuine happiness comes from within rather than from external stimulation. Breaking free starts with small acts of rebellion against the attention economy. This means creating periods of voluntary discomfort, times when we deliberately choose boredom over stimulation, silence over noise, reflection over reaction. It means learning to delay gratification, not as self-punishment, but as a way of building what we might call our freedom muscle. Every time you feel the urge to check your phone and choose not to, every time you opt for a book over a video, every time you sit with a difficult emotion instead of immediately escaping into entertainment, you're practicing liberation. The goal isn't to become a digital hermit or reject all modern pleasures, but to transform from a passive consumer into an active chooser. This requires developing what psychologists call an internal locus of control. The belief that your actions, rather than external forces, primarily determine your outcomes. It means distinguishing between hedonic happiness, which comes from pleasure and the absence of pain, and eudaimonic happiness, which comes from meaning, personal growth, and the realization of your potential. For young people especially, this distinction is crucial. Social media trains us to seek external validation, to measure our worth by likes, follows, and social comparison. But real confidence comes from developing competence in things that matter to you, from building genuine relationships based on mutual respect rather than mutual entertainment, and from having a vision for your life that extends beyond immediate gratification. Practical liberation might look like starting your morning without immediately reaching for your phone, allowing yourself to be bored during commute times instead of immediately filling every moment with podcasts or videos, reading actual books rather than consuming only bite-sized content, and regularly engaging in activities that require sustained attention and effort. It means choosing difficulty when easy options are available, not out of masochism, but because we know that growth happens at the edge of our comfort zone. Perhaps most importantly, it means recognizing that you're not alone in this struggle. Huxley understood that meaningful change happens in community, with others who share your commitment to conscious living. The very fact that you're watching a video like this suggests you're already part of a growing movement of people who refuse to accept passive consumption as the highest form of human existence. The choice we face isn't between pleasure and misery, but between manufactured desires and authentic fulfillment, between being manipulated by algorithms and thinking for ourselves, between living as consumers and living as creators of our own experience. Huxley gave us both the warning and the cure. The question is whether we have the courage to choose freedom over comfort, growth over entertainment, and authentic connection over digital distraction. As Huxley himself observed, the real hopeless victims of mental illness are to be found among those who appear to be most normal. They are normal only in relation to a profoundly abnormal society. The first step toward freedom is recognizing that what we consider normal, constant stimulation, endless consumption, perpetual distraction, is actually a form of collective madness. Once you see the cage, you can begin to find the key.